Imagine spending like over $1 million, so something like 10 crore rupees, just gathering the absolute biggest internet celebrities in your entire country.
Yeah, a massive undertaking.
Right. And you're building these massive, elaborate sets, hyping up this historic blockbuster video event.
Yeah.
So you bring in millions of viewers who are expecting, a masterpiece.
A cultural moment, really.
Exactly. And then the entire thing just devolves into a room full of millionaires screaming at each other about, like, who has more subscribers.
It is an incredible anticlimax. I mean, truly. And it is exactly what just happened in the massive booming ecosystem of Indian YouTube.
Yeah, and that's why we are getting into a really fascinating piece of cultural critique today on this deep dive. So the piece is titled "The Mirror of Creative Bankruptcy." And I have to say, it is an absolute scorcher of an article.
Oh, it really pulls no punches.
No, it doesn't. It takes aim at a recent 22-minute MrBeast parody video. And this was orchestrated by CarryMinati, who is obviously one of the absolute giants of the Indian digital space. Now, just to set the ground rules for you listening right now, we aren't here to take sides or, like, cancel anyone.
Right. That's not the goal here.
Right. We are simply unpacking this really unapologetic critique made by the author of the piece. We're using it as a lens to examine the underlying mechanics of digital content today. Because the points they raise are just fascinating.
They really are. And, the premise the author operates from is pretty simple. When the biggest creators in a country share a screen, the audience naturally expects a landmark moment of entertainment.
You expect history.
Exactly. But according to the source, this highly anticipated parody video devolved into a showcase of cheap profanity, desperate begging for subscribers, and just, well, a glaring lack of any original ideas.
Yeah, the author drops a biting thesis right at the start of the piece.
Yeah.
They wrote, and I quote, "Money came, but class didn't."
It's a devastating line.
It really is.
I mean, it systematically tears down this illusion that high production value automatically equals high creative value. Because, and we have to be clear, this video isn't some low-effort vlog shot on a smartphone in someone's bedroom.
Right, this is high budget.
Huge budget. It makes massive promises right out of the gate.
And I really want to pull that apart because the scale of this project is baffling if the script is as hollow as the author claims. Like, you mentioned the 10 crore rupee budget earlier.
Yeah, roughly over $1 million.
Right. And the video features characters meticulously designed to mirror MrBeast's actual crew. So you've got people playing Chandler and Carl, and they brought in absolute heavy hitters for cameos. Massive Indian gaming creators like Triggered Insane, MythPat, Mortal.
Bunch names, the biggest.
Yeah, and the physical setup is designed to look like a literal blockbuster movie. So I guess my question is, what actually happens when you combine massive production promises with hollow writing? Where's the disconnect? If you have the money to build a set, why not just hire writers to write a good script?
Well, this gets to the very heart of how YouTube algorithms have basically reshaped content creation.
Okay.
The source points out that instead of utilizing this massive budget for clever comedy or biting satire, the creators rely entirely on old, cliched profanity.
Like just swearing.
Yeah, the dialogue constantly devolves into cheap swearing. And the reason this happens, mechanically speaking, is that visual spectacle generates the click, right? But high arousal emotion retains the viewer.
Ah, I see.
So the algorithm rewards the eye-catching thumbnail of a giant set, and then it rewards constant, loud audio spikes to keep younger audiences from, swiping away.
So it's essentially using a $100 million special effects budget to mask a script written by angry teenagers.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, the yelling and the cursing aren't just lazy, they are an actual retention strategy.
Yes. That is the structural critique the article is making here. And the author asks a very uncomfortable question in the piece. They ask, is the creativity of the Indian YouTube community now entirely dependent on who can scream the loudest and use the dirtiest words? Wow.
Yeah. They argue that the creators use the sheer volume of their screaming to hide a fundamental lack of vocabulary and comedic timing.
Okay, I hear that, but let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Sure.
I look at these creators, and they have tens of millions of subscribers. The source criticizes them for behaving badly, noting they are like role models to millions of kids. But I'm struggling with this expectation.
How so?
Well, is it really a YouTube creator's job to be a moral role model?
Right.
Or are they just entertainers giving the market exactly what it continues to click on? Like, if the audience wants crude humor, aren't they just delivering the product?
Right. And that is the eternal debate of media consumption, right?
Yeah.
However, the author actually anticipates that exact defense. In the video, the creators slap a scripted video disclaimer right at the beginning.
Oh, essentially trying to use the "it's just a joke" shield.
Exactly. But the source firmly argues that a disclaimer does not excuse masking a lack of vocabulary with a barrage of curses.
Got it. The ultimate conclusion drawn by the author here is that if these stars cannot be funny without swearing and demeaning each other, they shouldn't be parading around as, quote, industry leaders or big creators.
So the disclaimer is basically just a get-out-of-jail-free card for not having a punchline.
That's the author's stance, yes. And that lack of substantive comedy becomes painfully obvious when you look at what actually fills up the 22-minute runtime.
Right, because 22 minutes is a long time to just yell.
Exactly. Without a real plot, the video has to rely on something else to keep the momentum going. And according to the article, that filler is pure, unadulterated ego.
Yes. Okay, this was the part of the critique that completely fascinated me. Because if you are making a parody of MrBeast, who is a guy known for absurd Willy Wonka-style challenges and giving away literal islands, you would expect the satire to focus on that massive philanthropy.
Right, you'd think that would be the target.
But no, the author zeroes in on a very different, very specific scene involving a carom board.
Yes, the carom board scene. This is pivotal to understanding the author's point. So you have these massive creators gathered around a board game.
Right.
This is a classic setup for brilliant banter. It's a trope we've seen in comedies for decades. But the source notes that the dialogue almost immediately abandons any comedic premise and devolves into literal, petty bickering over subscriber counts.
Oh, man.
You literally have characters saying, I have 20 million, and the response is, well, I have 19 million.
It's like watching billionaires argue over who has more pennies in their cup holder.
Right.
It completely shatters the illusion of the sketch. Like, you're not playing characters anymore.
It does. The source describes the scene as less of a comedy sketch and more of a genuine ego clash that just accidentally made it onto the screen. And it even gets physical. Yeah, there's a depicted fight between characters played by Bhuvan Bam, who is bringing out his famous foul-mouthed Titu Mama persona and harsh Beniwal. And this isn't like slapstick comedy. The article points out they are threatening to hit each other with shoes. They are grabbing each other's throats.
That is so revealing. I mean, even in a highly produced, heavily edited, scripted parody, the source sees their real-world vanity and status anxiety bleeding right through the screen.
Absolutely.
It makes you wonder, as a listener, if the content we consume isn't actually about storytelling at all. Like, maybe it's just a byproduct of creators fighting for dominance on a public scoreboard.
The author argues exactly that. This scene exposes a deep structural flaw in this specific creator community, an absolute obsession with numerical metrics. The critique is that they act more like participants in a street brawl than industry leaders or artists.
Wow.
They are so deeply insecure about their digital status that they are willing to put their dignity aside just to flex their numbers on camera.
So they act like aggressive brawlers when they're dealing with their local peers. But, and the host makes this amazing point, what happens to that bravado when the perceived audience shifts?
Oh, this is fascinating.
Right. Because the article notes a massive change in their behavior. The second international influence and, foreign money enters the frame.
Yeah, this brings us to what the source considers the most ironic and frankly hilarious part of the entire parody.
Okay, set the scene for us.
So the video introduces caricatures of American streamer IShowSpeed alongside the overarching presence of MrBeast's immense wealth.
Because MrBeast is the ultimate symbol of YouTube capitalism. He represents the top of the global food chain.
Precisely. And the article observes this sudden, jarring behavioral shift. In front of these foreign creators, these aggressive, swearing Indian roasters suddenly put on an act.
An act.
Yeah, they become innocent, highly cultured. The term the source uses is sanskari.
Ah, sanskari.
Right.
Yeah.
They act like the most polite, well-behaved people on earth.
It's the digital equivalent of code switching in corporate America. You put on a polite, sanitized face for the foreign investors holding the checkbook while completely abandoning the edgy persona that got you famous in the first place.
It's a perfect comparison. They are seeking international validation, which obviously comes with higher prestige and, frankly, higher ad rates.
Of course.
But the source points out how quickly that sanskari mask slips.
Oh, okay.
Well, the moment the MrBeast character reveals a bag of dollars, that cultured act instantly vanishes. Their true hunger for views and their absolute greed for money becomes glaringly obvious. The facade completely crumbles.
And how do they reconcile that greed with the core mechanic of the platform? Because at the end of the day, no matter how much money is in that bag, they still need the audience to do something very specific, right?
Right. And that is the punchline of the whole video. The source notes that it ends with this unified, almost desperate chorus of all the creators screaming, "Subscribe, subscribe."
Just begging for it. Think about the mechanics of that for a second. Like, you listening right now know how ubiquitous that is. The subscribe button is the ultimate primal currency of this realm.
Yes, exactly.
So according to the author, despite trying to project a massive international persona, dropping $1 million to look like global media moguls, their ultimate goal remains identical to the smallest channel on the platform, just smashing that red button.
The behavioral loop is identical, yes. The author's point is that they project massive wealth, but their behavior betrays a desperate need for the most basic metric on the platform to survive.
Okay, so we've looked at the group dynamics, the egos, the relationship with money. But the author doesn't just attack the general vibe of the video. The deep dive gets incredibly granular here.
It really does.
They start dismantling the specific genres of YouTube content that these guest creators represent, right?
Yeah, the article systematically goes after the different niches, and they start with reaction channels. The source takes specific aim at the caricatures of MythPat and Triggered Insane.
Now, the reaction video genre is a fascinating beast. It is everywhere. But it fundamentally relies on someone else doing the heavy lifting first.
Which is exactly the author's problem with it.
Right.
So in the parody, there's a scene where one creator is playing the video game Minecraft, while the other simply watches him play and makes weird laughing noises.
Just weird laughing noises.
That's the extent of the interaction. And the source brutally zeroes in on this. They label reaction content not as a valid form of content creation, but as a complete bankruptcy of creativity.
I mean, the mechanics of reaction content are brilliant from a business perspective, but bleak from a creative one.
Oh, completely.
You don't have to write a script. You don't have to build a set. You just leverage existing viral intellectual property, slap your face in the corner, and ride the parasocial bond you have with your audience.
Yeah.
The author is essentially saying, you aren't making anything. You're just a parasite attached to someone else's work.
And to illustrate how far this obsession with low-effort engagement goes, the source highlights a very dark joke from the parody. Yeah, one of the creators implies that they would divorce their wife without even having to die if it brought in more views.
That is incredibly bleak.
It is, but the author uses this specific joke to show a complete willingness among these creators to commodify everything.
Right.
Their personal relationships, their real lives, it's all just cheap giveaway material for the audience. The implication is that in this ecosystem, nothing is sacred, and absolutely everything is content to be fed to the algorithm.
Now, this obsession with manufacturing drama and churning out content isn't just limited to gaming and reaction videos, though. It's actually infected the format we're using right now.
Yeah.
Podcasting.
Yes.
The source points out how this same performative greed manifests in the guru space, specifically targeting a caricature of a creator known as Beer Biceps.
Yeah, so the source mocks this creator as someone who sits in front of a camera churning out rapid-fire, completely unverified knowledge about aliens, ghosts, and life after death.
Acting like a spiritual guru.
Exactly, but actually just operating a machine for suspenseful thumbnails.
It's the repackaging of the unknown into a highly clickable product. Like, you put on the aesthetic of a spiritual guru, lower the lighting, lean into the microphone, and suddenly your wild speculations look like profound wisdom.
The article argues that it's not about finding truth or offering enlightenment. It's about stretching watch times and maximizing click-through rates.
The aesthetic of knowledge without any of the actual research.
And the knockout blow to this entire genre comes from the MrBeast character himself within the parody.
What does he say?
He delivers a line saying, "Now I feel like throwing up just looking at a podcast microphone."
Oh, wow. That is a brutal summation.
It is, and the source claims this wasn't just a funny piece of dialogue thrown into the script. They argue that this line was the actual manifestation of the internet audience's real, bubbling frustration. People are just exhausted by this type of low-effort, clickbait spirituality.
All right, let's step back and look at the whole board here. We have reaction channels reduced to weird laughing noises. We have podcasters reduced to fake alien experts. We have a cast of creators who, according to the source, are egotistical, lazy, obsessed with metrics, and solely driven by money.
A pretty grim picture.
Extremely grim. So if all of that is true, I am struggling to understand the business logic of them ever being in the same room. If they were so protective of their own egos, why go through the massive headache of a 10-crow crossover event? Like, why collaborate at all?
That is the final, most cynical puzzle piece the article addresses. To explain the why, the source looks at the finale of the video, specifically a voiceover delivered by the MrBeast character.
Okay.
This voiceover strips away the entire facade they've built up over 22 minutes. It explicitly states that the best trait of these Indian YouTubers is their ability to act like they stay together.
Act being the absolute operative word there.
Yes.
It is manufactured brotherhood.
Exactly. The article contrasts what the audience sees on screen. The creators hugging, laughing, high-fiving, acting like a giant happy family, with the reality of what happens when the cameras stop rolling.
Which is what?
Behind the scenes, the source claims they're just calculating each other's subscriber counts, looking for the upper hand, and treating each other as stepping stones.
But the creators themselves are only half of the equation here. Why did the algorithm push this dynamic to the very top of the culture? We teased this earlier conflict drives retention. But where does the audience fit into this manufactured brotherhood? Because these creators have massive, fiercely loyal fan bases.
This is where the critique gets incredibly dark regarding the creator-audience relationship. While the creators are in the video faking this brotherhood and counting their money, down in the comment sections, their fan bases are going to war.
Literally.
Yes. You have groups that literally call themselves armies. The Minati army, Triggered fans, the Mortal fans. And they're viciously fighting each other in the comments over who is the superior creator.
Oh, this is the real aha moment of the entire deep dive.
It is.
The toxicity in the comment section isn't a bug in the system. It isn't an accident. It's a fundamental monetization strategy.
It is the engine of the entire enterprise. The article accuses these creators of actively exploiting these raw, tribal fan emotions to line their own pockets.
Because YouTube's algorithm doesn't care if a comment is positive or negative.
Not at all.
It just sees engagement. It sees 1,000 comments a minute of fans tearing each other apart, and the algorithm says, wow, people are really engaged with this video, let's push it to the trending page.
And once it hits the trending page, the creators use those inflated engagement metrics to push brand endorsements. The source specifically mentions Winzo, a gaming platform, as an example of the kind of branding they push onto these warring, highly emotional fan bases.
So the source is telling us that you, the viewer, are out there fighting in the digital trenches, defending the honor of a creator who is just hanging out in the VIP lounge, using your loyalty to sell you ads. The fans are providing the free labor of algorithmic engagement so the creators can cash the checks.
It is a highly cynical, almost dystopian view of the creator economy, but it is the absolute core of the author's final argument.
We have covered incredible ground here. Let's synthesize what this source is ultimately trying to tell us about the state of internet culture.
Taking all of these mechanics into account, the source's ultimate conclusion is that this 22-minute video was less of a MrBeast parody and more a tale of the decline of the Indian YouTube community.
A tale of the decline.
Yes, by relying on profanity instead of writing, obsessing over metrics instead of art, faking their camaraderie and exploiting their audience's tribalism, these massive creators have revealed a deeply entrenched, creatively bankrupt nation.
And the author leaves them with one final, incredibly specific and humorous insult to wrap up the piece.
Oh, this part is great.
They compare these massive multi-million-dollar creators to a melody toffee. Why? Because, as the author says, at least the toffee doesn't leave a bad taste in your mouth.
It's a very vivid way to summarize the cultural disappointment. You know, you are promised a feast of entertainment, and you are served something that just leaves you feeling slightly sick and used.
It is the ultimate mic drop from the author. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with something to mull over that pushes beyond the boundaries of this article.
Okay.
The piece we just unpacked places all the blame squarely on the creators for this creative bankruptcy. It paints them as the villains exploiting the system. But we have to ask ourselves a really uncomfortable question about demand versus supply in the digital age.
Right, the economics of attention.
Exactly. If these formulaic, low-effort videos, the ones filled with swearing, fake drama, and transparent pleas for subscribers, are consistently generating hundreds of millions of views, are the creators truly bankrupt? Or are they just giving the market exactly what it continues to click on?
It's a fair question.
If we stop clicking, they stop making it. So are we, as the audience, the actual architects of the very content we love to complain about? It's a murky picture, and the blame isn't just on the people holding the camera. It might also be on the millions of us staring back at the screen, smashing that subscribe button, and fighting the comments. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the media you consume every day, and we'll see you next time.